I chose to write about communication amidst political parties. There's a lot of intense polarization right now, and I understand why that is, but I think that it's imperative that we find language that works to talk about political issues. I think it's important that we find language that allows us to break down partisan lines, actually talk about what's at the base of these politicized ideals, breaking them down so that we're not using buzzwords that are triggering to both sides of the political spectrum. And so, for instance, I come from a very, very conservative family, and the idea of privilege is something that has been politicized to a place where I can't use that language with them to find common ground. But what I've realized is that doesn't mean that they don't believe in privilege. They just have different ways of talking about it. And so I think that we end up saying things that are much more similar than we realize. We've just sort of weaponized certain language to where it's unuseful in our conversation. So I think breaking down our ideas to where they are salient and communicable is so important right now. I think a lot of times ideals, they start off with language that is simple and it's, sort of broadly understood. But as political messages become more and more agentic, that language becomes more and more weaponized. And so the way that I wrote my piece is I started off with a very simple chaconne melody. And as the idea evolves, the language around that chaconne is still present, but it becomes weaponized and much more aggressive. But I think the message of the piece is ultimately that idea is still there and is a good idea to explore. I just think that we can get to a place where we are so insular in the way that we talk about these things that sometimes, like I put in the piece, with one hand doing sort of fighting within itself, and then the other hand comes in a measure later and it's saying the same thing, but it's fighting within itself, and the two hands are at odds. That is about clearing away, it's about simplifying, and it's about going back to really being able to articulate what we actually believe. Transference is projecting your ideas or stereotypes or experiences that you've had in your past life projecting those onto another person, reducing conservatives down to one idea, or reducing liberals down to one idea, and not being able to move past that. And so in order to truly diversify and to truly broaden our world purview, we not only need to get to know people in other communities, but we have to accept that we have a lot of education about different perspectives that exist in different communities. And that's not just, racial or sexual identity diversity or gender diversity. That's, intellectual diversity as well. Because I think that what we're missing is that people, that this country is huge and that people live in very, very different ways all across it.